5,000 years ago, pharaohs ruled a land that was wealthy due to the bounty provided by the Nile River. There was wheat for bread, feed for animals, papyrus for paper, and transportation by boat. The pharaohs used the wealth to make tombs, temples, and art. They thought their gods could help them live for eternity. Therefore, preserving their body and possessions was important.
This is the beginning of the story, and it was done by the hands of a very famous architect known as Imhotep. I know for sure that this person was a genius man in everything. He was a doctor that made the first ever known book of medicine, and he wrote a lot of documents about what's the right medicine for which disease. And that's why a little bit later on, the Greeks have deified him and made him the god of medicine. We're going to see it together when we get to the Greco-Roman temples, that they have represented him as a god, and they worshipped him, and they gave him offerings. Anyway, this guy was actually a genius architect at the same time, and he wanted to guarantee eternity for his king. He used to bury the deceased at the beginning of the Egyptian history, something called at the pre-dynastic period, directly in sand. So we make a pit in the sand, and we bury the mummy inside of it. This is supposed to be a mummy, eh? Okay? So, and then we cover this with sand, and that's it, done with a couple of jars that is supposed to be containing liquids and drinks and foods that the deceased would like to have with him in the afterlife, especially as well some kind of tools that he would need actually for his daily life. But we discovered something. A little bit later on, a jackal would come and eat the mummy, dig the bed and eat the mummy. So we wanted to develop the protection of the mummy on a way that the jackal wouldn't find that easy to reach the mummy. That's why we decided to build the mastaba on top of the tomb. This is a layer of stones that would cover the entrance to the tomb, and like this it would make the deceased safe from jackals' attacks. Did it work? No, the jackals can know through the smell where is actually the mummy is located. And they can easily, in such soft sand like the one that we have here, they can dig a tunnel and reach the mummy and eat it. So that's why we needed to develop it a little bit better than what we have reached. And that's when they decided to make the burial as a deep shaft, ending in a huge room containing enough space to house the sarcophagus, and that is made of stone or wood. And then the mummy would be resting inside that coffin with no trouble whatsoever from the jackals anymore. It stayed like that, and we can find tombs like this one, identical to this one, in the first and second dynasties at Abydos area. But then came Imhotep, and he wanted the tomb of his king to be higher than the normal size that we have. And that's when he decided to put more than one mastaba on top of each other. So he came on top of the first one, and he did another layer. And then he thought, I have more space here, so let's put another layer. I have more space, let's put another one, and another one, and another one, until he reached 6 mastabas in general. And that is the one that you can see here, measuring around 62 meters in height. This is like 180 feet, and it contains 6 layers of stones, like clearly visible from here. Finally, we are here by the pyramids. Everybody actually have seen a picture of it at home, or maybe actually have read about the pyramids before they come to Egypt. And at least if you're gonna go on a trip to Egypt, you're gonna go to a travel agency, ask them, can I go on that day to Egypt? They will show you one thing on a map or an advertisement, and that's a picture of those 3 things that you have here. Why? Are they the only pyramids that we have here in Egypt? No, we do have more than the 3 that we have here. We have discovered, up till now, 126 pyramids. Discovered Are they so tiny that we can't see them or something? No, but some of them, the superstructure have vanished because of the people, genius people in the Middle Ages, that they have used them as a quarry for limestones. And that's why they used all the superstructure. And what we have now is just the foundation and some rooms that existed under the ground. The question now, are we talking about a time that Egypt actually was called with a different name? Yes, it was called the land of the pharaohs. And the pharaohs, are they Egyptians? Yes, they are our grandfathers, but we are not anymore pure blood from the ancient Egyptians. We are a mixture of everything. But this is not the case now. I would like just to say that by that time, Egypt was actually a huge empire. It was actually owning under their umbrella about 2/3 of the known world. They were a huge kingdom. Anyway, we were famous for two things: obelisks and pyramids. But the Egyptians have made a lot of them. The biggest of all of them are the three that we have here. And that's why all travel agencies are showing them for tourists. It's very important to know that we are talking about 2,500 years BC. This means by that time we did not have electricity, we did not have iron, we did not have cranes, we did not have the wheel yet, we did not have computers, anything that would make the work easy here. But it was a long story of challenges that the ancient Egyptians have managed to solve in a very short time. How did they manage to make such a huge building in a short time? We are talking about 21 years of hard work. And don't forget that all those limestone blocks, they are limestone blocks, they were not brought from a quarry around here. They were brought from a quarry on the eastern side of the River Nile. And where we are now, on the western side of the River Nile. You mean that they had to transport them on boats from the eastern side to the western side as well? Not just drag them to be used in building the pyramid? Yes. And how did they do it? Actually, it became like a big question mark for us that nobody can answer. But we have thousands and thousands and thousands of theories trying to explain how did they do it.
One detailed theory of how they quarried and moved 2.3 million lime stone blocks in only 21 years and with only 7,000 workers involves use of rope rollers and counterweights. They started with a fairly short 30-degree ramp to lay in the first 6 levels of blocks and casing stones. This ramp extended all the way to the local quarry. On that ramp, they built a 2-rail wooden track that the sledge and stone rides on for minimal friction. Ropes from the sledge go through the rope roller and back, where they are pulled down the ramp by a team of men. For the higher pyramid levels, they built a track on the casing stones, which rises at a 52-degree angle. The team walks down the pyramid as the block rises. For the 30 to 60-ton granite blocks, they need a special ramp from the nearby Nile Channel to the site. To move a 60-ton granite block up the pyramid face requires a counterweight of 8 2.5-ton blocks and many men moving downward.
boats that are known as the solar boats that's supposed to be used for making the trip to the afterlife. So the king wouldn't go to the afterlife walking or on a camel or something. He has to use a transportation method. You can hardly find a child that didn't hear the name Sphinx, that didn't see a picture of the gentleman behind me here, that didn't read about him and know that he came from a country known as Egypt. Why? Is it the only Sphinx that we have? No, we have thousands of Sphinxes in Egypt. Thousands? How come? Actually, we used by the time of the pharaohs the word Sphinx to represent a guardian. So he was a guardian of entrances, leading in a small routes or streets, flanked with the sphinxes on both sides, down to entrances of tombs and temples, and all of that would be guarded with three powers in one. I mean, the sphinx to be a guardian is actually the power of the god, combined with the power of the king, combined with the body of a lion. And like this, we have the strongest animal ever and guardian ever to guard the entrances. You can see that this one here is very unique as it was made of one block of stone. I repeat, the statue behind me here is made out one block of stone. They thought it was brought to here to be used in building the pyramid behind it there. But because of the poor quality of the stone, they changed their mind into fashioning it into a statue to be a guardian by the entrance instead of using it in the construction of the pyramid itself. But the statue behind me here is almost 150 feet long. 60 feet is the height of the statue's head. The width of the face is almost 30 feet, and the length of the mouth is almost 6 feet. So it's a huge statue, carved with chisels and hammers in one block of stone. Don't forget that the statue here is representing the king, and he is represented with full insignia. I mean the Nemes headdress above his head and a false beard. But unfortunately, the false beard together with the cobra that's supposed to be on his forehead are both damaged now, and we can't find them here in Egypt. You can find them in the British Museum in London. Very important to know as well that the statue have been colored with different beautiful colors from all sides. You can still see traces of colors by the forehead of the statue, the back head of the statue, and next to the ears. Okay, there is evidence as well showing us that the statue since the time of the pharaohs have been covered with sand until the neck. So we just saw the head in a sea of sand from all sides. Tutankhamun is the most famous king of Egypt all around the world because of one thing, and that is his tomb. But another surprise related to the gentleman here, it is the smallest tomb ever found for a king in the Egyptian history. The smallest tomb ever found in the Egyptian history. Is that the one that belongs to Tutankhamun? Yes. Which is the biggest one then? It is the Great Pyramid of Cheops at Giza, the one we just saw. And how much thing did we find inside the Great Pyramid of Giza? Zero. And how much thing did we find inside the smallest tomb that is actually dedicated to Tutankhamun. 1/3 of the new Egyptian museum comes from the tomb known as Tutankhamun tomb, and it's more than 6,000 objects. The majority of them are made of gold, or massive gold, or coated with gold, or precious stones, or silver. He was a child that stayed on the throne of Egypt for just 9 years. He became the king of Egypt when he was 8 or 9 years old, and he died when he was 18 or 19. He was as well, another surprise, he was a handicapped boy. He had a shorter leg than the other one, and he needed to use more than 120 walking sticks during his lifetime, something that is not related to his age. But anyway, this is maybe because of his mother and his father that was related. They were actually half brothers and sisters from each other. The discovery of the tomb is related to an English Egyptologist known as Howard Carter. He worked in Egypt for 10 years with no luck, almost gave up. He didn't actually want to lose his chance to get another permission, renew his permission to go in excavations in the Valley of the Kings. And by coincidence, pure coincidence, that child working for him found the tomb of Tutankhamun. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Valley of the Kings. From the name, you will expect that everybody that's buried here is actually supposed to be a man. And he was a king, an official king of Egypt. But I call the valley not the King's Valley, I call them the VIB, actually, VIP Valley. Why? Everybody that led Egypt for at least one day, he will get the right to make a tomb for himself here. There are important people that led the country in a way or another, like generals of army, like high priests, anybody that would be capable of leading Egypt for a while, he will get the chance to make his tomb here. But in general, if I became by the time of the pharaohs a king, I should start immediately by making my tomb in the Valley of the Kings ready before my death. And why is that? Were we in a hurry or something? No, nobody would know when he would die, and he would like to be prepared for his burial. And what would happen if I would die with no tomb? Big problem. I'm not having enough texts and enough rituals for the trip to the afterlife. How many tombs did we find so far in the Valley of the Kings? Up till now, 64 in total. A difficult question for you, Tarek. Why didn't they actually make pyramids like their grandfathers in the north? Actually, they were trying to protect the tombs from being looted. That's why they have chosen an isolated valley in the middle of the desert that can be guarded from around it on the mountains that we can see here. They did make guard posts, and they hired military and police agents to guard the site here day and night. And did it work to make the king safely buried under the ground here? No, they were looted, because the mafia this time that looted everything, that consisted of the guards plus the priests plus the workmen that knew where is the tombs exactly. Anyway, the tombs that we're going to see today are actually done by the hands of professional paid craftsmen. The workmen that worked here, they stayed in a village known as the Workmen Village, and it is included in our program for today. We're gonna go and visit it later on. It was not that far away from here. It was like a mile away from here, but they have to cross the mountain that you're gonna see there to the left-hand side. On daily basis trip. In the early morning, they come to here, get their tools, work with it, and then they get back at the end of the day by the sunset, give the tools back, and they can enjoy their daily life in a privilege of a very nice city made for them with very nice houses. Those workmen were actually a total of 80 families, and all of them were talented, and they actually had the job as a family job. So the father would teach his son to be a painter or a craftsman, and it goes like this for centuries. The most important thing to know about them, that they were divided into 3 groups. The first group would do the most difficult job, and that is working with chisels and hammers, and they make the tunnel, niches, rooms, and everything that has to be cut under the ground. And they take all the sand and debris out and throw it away. The second group will do a difficult job as well. They would come with a layer of plaster, and they will cover all the walls and ceilings. And like this, you have a smooth surface to put the scenes and colors on them. And this is when the task of the third group would come. And they are a group of painters, and they would come with a pre-arranged scene that the king have chosen during his lifetime, and they will start drawing everything on the layer of stucco or plaster that I talked about, and they will actually correct their mistakes after that. Then they will chisel them in or out and then paint them. One of the most important things that we should know about the tombs before we go inside, that we're going to see a lot of scenes on the walls. Those scenes are telling us one story, which is the trip to the afterlife. How it is going to be, how we're going to do it, what kind of transportation method are we going to use, are we going to do this on foot, on a camel, how are we going to do this? Actually, those questions had to be answered by the high priests that made a fantasy known as the Book of the Dead. They told us that the trip to the afterlife is not a short trip, it's a very long trip. And it continued to 24 hours with gates, and each gate we have to cross. They had actually something called as guardians, jinnis, standing day and night waiting for the people to cross, and before they are allowed to go through, they have to tell them the right formulas, the right passwords, the right text. Otherwise, I will be trapped in between two gates and I'm not allowed to travel further. And from where can I get all those formulas? I have to get them from the priest because he knows everything. They made it as well a shocking trip for the commoners. They told them, you're gonna face in the afterlife a hippopotamus that can fly, a crocodile that comes with fire outside of his mouth, a cobra with 3 heads. Why do they actually try as much as possible to make everybody afraid for the trip? You would like to go safe through all those difficulties? Yes, for sure. Okay, then pay. They don't say pay, they say give over. Exactly. And then you will get the chance from us to get part of this text that is known as the Book of the Dead, and you can read it and keep it with you for emergencies in the afterlife. Anyway, you're going to see as well a lot of boats on the walls, and this is because this is the transportation method to the afterlife. We're going to follow as well a main deity of Egypt known as Amun-Ra, and he's the one that knows the way. So all the time we see boats tied together with people on them. The first one, for sure, it is the one of Amun-Ra. He knows the way. He's the guide. The one following contains the people that are allowed to join the God to the afterlife, and for sure they are the people that are actually the God satisfied with. And welcome to the famous archaeological site known as Karnak Temple. It's one of the most famous in Egypt, as it is the biggest ever made humankind construction dedicated for one cult. The main deity of this temple was Amun-Ra, and Amun-Ra was the sun disk, the deity that became the supreme deity of Egypt, of the new kingdom in mainly around 1500 years BC. You can see here what is typical Egyptian, and that is the Sphinx's Avenue that is leading us from the harbor down there at the end by the very tiny limestone obelisk, and it would lead us to something called a pylon, and that is the one just behind us here. Two big gates symbolizing the entrance of the ancient Egyptians, and it is to be compared with two mountains from in between the sun would shine. But the sphinxes that you can see here, you're going to see that they look different from the one that we saw in Cairo. The one in Cairo was a human head with the body of a lion, but here we can see a ram head with a statue of a king underneath the head and a body of a lion behind it. Welcome everybody by the Temple of Luxor, which is one of the most famous temples that we have here in the city of Thebes, and the second most important temple after Karnak. You will find that we have a typical Egyptian entrance of an ancient Egyptian temple. The two big pylons, but here they are decorated with war scenes, and they are decorated with offering scenes from the time of the pharaohs, and you can see that mostly the scenes we have here dating back to the time of Ramses the Great, the 19th dynasty. In front of the temple, we had 6 statues of Ramses the Great. 4 of them are standing and 2 of them are seated. But you can see that they are actually not of the same color of stone. Some of them are red granite, and some of them are black granite. In front of the temple, we used to have two obelisks, identical in size and in form and in height. One of them is still standing in situ up till now, and the second one, the twin obelisk of this one, was removed from here as a gift to Philip III, the Emperor of France, in the year 1833. So, pharaohs, we are here inside the first part of the temple that's usually called as an open court. We already talked about it before, and we mentioned this is the area for the rituals, where the commoners are going to come to do the rituals nearby offering tables. Where are the offering tables? Let's check together. This is one of them. The one is standing there in the middle. But this is not that big, like the one that we just saw this morning by the other temple. Yes, because I mentioned that before, that there would be the permanent residence of the god. Here it would be needed for performing a feast or a ritual. That is the marriage, the sacred marriage between the gods. You will notice as well that we have there two statues again of Ramses the Great made of black granite. The one over there is one of my favorite. Actually, the man that have made it out one block of granite had a lot of talent. He was a perfect craftsman. Every time I try to look at him, I feel that he's looking back at me. Look at the eyes, look at the nose, look at the lips with the slightly smiling face that you can see from here. Look at the cobra in his forehead, one of the masterpieces in art in a big size. And this is made of a very hard kind of stone known as black granite brought from Aswan. Good morning, pharaohs, and finally, we are now in front of His Majesty, Ramses the Great, the most well-known king of Egypt. For more than 3,000 years, Egypt has been ruled by the pharaohs. Only this king that behind me here is well known as the Great. Why? Because he was an exceptional person in a lot of things. Number one, he was exceptionally tall man. He was almost 6 feet. That's like a basketball player or something. This is not actually because he was exceptionally tall, just like a normal Egyptian man by that time, but because his mother came from Mesopotamia, that is the Hittites' land, or Turkey nowadays. He was the only Egyptian as well with red hair. He was the only Egyptian as well that lived for more than 90 years. He ruled Egypt for 62 years. And this means that 3 generations from the ancient Egyptians have seen nobody as a sole ruler of Egypt except the gentleman here. He's known as well as the Great because he have built a great empire for Egypt that extends from Persia down to the half of Libya and down to the Ethiopian land. He was well known as well with his big family, as he actually married officially more than 80 wives and he had more than 190 children. Anyway, you're going to see it everywhere that he is depicted in a big scale together with his family members. And we have here one of his wives, not all the wives, and her name is Nefertari, and she's different from the famous lady Nefertiti. Nefertiti was the wife of Akhenaten, and this is 18th dynasty, but Nefertari is the wife of Ramses the Great. It's very well known as well that he is the owner of the biggest statues ever made for a human person in the Egyptian history. Those statues are actually 21 meters high. It's almost 66 feet in height. And those are actually carved with chisels and hammers in a mountain. This makes it the second most important site in Egypt after the pyramids of Giza. I find it really, really not good that they actually did not consider this temple yet to be one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, as it deserved to be one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. Look at the eyes, all of them the same scale, the same height. Look at the shoulders, the knees, the crowns, all of them are identical. And they had 0% for mistakes. I mean, if they did one mistake there, it cannot be corrected. They are not actually separate stones that they would replace them with another one and correct the mistake in the new one. But here, they knew from the first minute, from the first day, that they will become perfect, like the one that you see here in front of us. The deity that we have here is God Rahur Akhti, and it is combination of, or combined the two gods in one, that is Horus the falcon with Amun-Ra. And that is the figure that we see there in the middle, standing of a human body with the head of a falcon and a circle on top of his head. There is a row of baboons depicted up there at the top, standing with their hands raised up to welcome the sun every day when they shines back again on the face of Ramses the Great. From inside, you're going to see that we have actually 3 rooms behind each other. One of them is depicting the battle that Ramses the Great have done against the Hittites' land, and it is known as Kadesh battle. Anyway, you can see that actually this temple has a unique case as well, that is the sun shining all the way down from the gate that you can see here, all the way down to the sanctuary, and illuminate the 4 statues sitting there, including Ramses the second as well, or the Great as well, as a deity, from their feet until their heights on 2 fixed dates per year. And those are the birth date of the king and the coronation date of the king as well. This is another wonder of the temple here. This is as well the only temple in Egypt that is so huge, that is completely carved within the mountain with chisels and hammers. You're going to see as well the best colors ever that we have seen up till now, because it was well preserved until their discovery in the year 1817 by Belzoni, the Italian Egyptologist. We notice that we have 2 temples. One of there is for his favorite wife, Nefertari, and she's depicted equaling him in size. But why did he make a special temple for her at this location? It is not very clear. Maybe because she was a princess from Nubia, and that's why he wanted to show her people that she's married to an important king of a land that can make such nice temples. Anyway, there is as well a text by the entrance here that would signify how close she was to his heart. He said, a beautiful monument for a beautiful lady that every day the sun shines for her. Okay, pharaohs, welcome everybody by one of my favorite sites here in Aswan, where we're gonna see together how the ancient Egyptians managed actually to make huge blocks of stone out of the bedrock here to look like an obelisk at the end. How did they transport them? How did they actually erect them in front of the temples? It was actually a huge project that it has to be followed by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people together cooperating to accomplish this important project for the king as soon as possible. But anyway, we are talking here actually about a big quarry that's not only just this site, the whole of Aswan, for granite. So the question now, what are the most acceptable theories about making an obelisk from the quarry here? It is not just an issue of making one block of stone completely separated from the mountain from all sides. We had to get it completely free. We have to move it. Now we have one challenge to go, and this huge obelisk has to be erected, set straight in front of the pylons. And this is a very, very sensitive step, as if they made one mistake, that whole thing would crack or damage or be destroyed in a couple of minutes. How would they do it? They will make actually two ramps made of mud that would reach actually the shape of a triangle at the end. But they will not meet each other in one point. They will come to a shaft that is filled with completely soft sand from the desert. And at the bottom of that shaft, you will find the bases for the obelisk.